That's right, I finally got around to interviewing again. However, to talk to the artist, Monk EXE, live via voice chat could not be accomplished, and I had to accept the alternative method, which was to leave questions for him and wait for his response to all of them. And if this serves any relevance, the first factor that actually made me accept this offer was due to time zone differences being way further than the other two folks I've interviewed, and of course to respect the fact the artist isn't fluent in English, so to have answers typed out made it easier for him as well. So to begin on the first question, what motivated you to get into world and character design?
I really love video games, and since childhood, I wanted to make something similar. That's how I got into 3D. Japanese games and 3D animated films like Final Fantasy and Resident Evil influenced me the most. Also music. I would listen to some track and imagine a scene to go with it. I always wanted to learn how to create something like that.
Okay, so that was the first question I asked. I didn't expect music to be a factor when it came to visual design, because when learning anything related to visual design, the first thing that comes to my mind is to look at visuals first and take inspiration from there, and to sprinkle in some nostalgic example for some folks who know the video I am talking about. It's kind of like Freddie W's muzzle flashed tutorial and the first step to it. He mentions the first thing you do is look at how muzzle flashes are shown in films. Question 2. Why did you choose Blender over any other program?
Blender is free. It has a very convenient and intuitive interface, a large number of add-ons, and the ability to very easily create your own add-ons for workflow convenience. Blender is constantly developing. Something is always being updated and it keeps getting better. That's really cool.
Alright, so the first factor is the program is free, and what it can do are two good factors it offers. It's kind of like choosing a video editing program. So for myself, I don't do any sort of crazy effects that warrant a top-notch video editing program. So that's the first factor I put up front when it came to looking for one. Then came down to purchasing options, but to cut it short, it was a while ago I settled down with what I use today, Olive Video Editor. The version I have is one of the old ones, 2C700CA2. It doesn't have anything complex other than a community effects package I downloaded, which also isn't much. It can do things such as chroma key, blur, keyframe, and some visual distortion effects. But even with those things present, what you can pull off, I dare say it's mostly basic stuff. If you tried to key out a green screen effect you found online, that's an example where it causes the visual effect to be keyed out with the colored background. But nonetheless, it's a program you can use if you just want to render something like a multiplayer match from start to finish. And then there was the other thing, which was to choose a photo editing program for making thumbnails. And because what I do is rather simple, I was able to go for the free options. I just went with what was free because I didn't need anything powerful or expensive, which is using an online Photoshop. Question 3. How many years have you done Blender artwork?
About 2.5 years. I've been making art and learning something in my free time. I tried before that too, but back then it seemed too difficult. for me.
So again, to bring my experience involving video games and video editing, it's no secret there are games I play. I never considered myself to be good at those games at all. For example, CSGO. I started during the time of Operation Bloodhound, and holy shrimp, I couldn't learn recoil control, and I was playing on a Mac computer during that time, so I was at a technological disadvantage, but it wasn't impossible to practice a lot and actually get to the point where I could do it. But unfortunately, I wasted all such practice hours, pouring them into playing deathmatch and casual more than competitive. But I did enjoy all those moments playing the operation maps, including the co-op strike missions featured in Operation Wildfire. Question 4. Can you describe what you struggled with when you were still learning Blender?
Very little good content and guides for learning. Most of the videos I've seen are very boring and uninteresting. That was probably the biggest problem in learning. Those same donut tutorials were impossible to watch, and the main problem in the beginning was the computer. It was originally built for other tasks, not for working with 3D.
Okay, so I went from an HP laptop to an iMac to a bottleneck pre-built desktop, and today on this pre-built desktop, which is actually suited for gaming, but to bring something related to learning tutorials. At one point, I did try to use Blender because it was one of the tools involved in model extraction. I wanted to try extracting one of the large ships in Titanfall 2, and that went nowhere. And to go back on computers I've had, it was the same case with running games and even rendering videos. Back during the years on my previous computer, which was the bottleneck one, when it comes to running games, of course, when it was brand new, I did not see the full story. However, down the road, when it came to moments where I decided to render a video or run games that were more or less changed in how optimized they are with the updates that came along, I saw how it started to act like my Mac computer, where frames just stuck itself close to 60, and just a slight bit of incoming action towards me dropped frames quite drastically. Plus, when using such computers, you of course would think, oh, the video came out in high definition. Okay. But when looking at my old videos from my current computer, I saw the opposite, seeing them as a result of bad render settings and due to the computer I used during those years. Question 5. As you progressed in learning the program, did any misconceptions you held about Blender or scene designs been cleared? Or are there still some things you still hold in mind today? Not necessarily misconceptions, it can be anything.
As I developed and learned, I was once again convinced that practice is the most important thing in any kind of activity. To do something in 3D, you don't need some innate talent. You need a good visual culture and practice, and everything will work out. And listen less to people in the comments. I've seen a lot of videos and comments about how you need to listen to people in the comments and adjust to their wishes. Although many people have neither taste nor a sense of style and don't have a broad visual culture, the most their evaluation goes is pretty or not pretty.
Oh boy, so I am going to sound like a typical YouTuber talking about reading comments. Yes, there's a difference between feedback that helps and feedback that is just opposition to what you present. So what did I mean by opposition? There's feedback and constructive feedback. Whenever someone would say this work is not good versus I believe you could improve on more explanation or better visuals to help aid your content, I can see some endorsement for the first one, which is the plain feedback, because I am not denying content presented can be seen as boring, for example, but I also realized the first feedback example, I realized it's not that a YouTuber, in I guess some cases, it's not that anyone would disagree. It's just that they see it as a personal attack and they just want to see something constructive, even though it's kind of like what I said. I admit as well where, okay, if you film a team deathmatch or free-for-all, capture the flag, whatever the case may be, it can be seen as boring because there's nothing interesting other than gameplay. But at the same time, I'm no stranger to the other side where people just want to see how the gameplay looks. And that's it. So to summarize all of that, yes, when a plain example is given, sometimes there can be truth to it. Question 6. When designing scenes, do you take inspiration from anything that's already there, such as a movie or video game? I would like to know the process of it, such as how many photos or movies you look at before coming up with an idea.
Usually it's spontaneous. While listening to music, a desire to make something appears, and some kind of image comes to mind. And then I try to recreate something similar to match the vibe I caught from the music. Or I'm playing a video game, watching anime or a film, and I see some scene that catches me. And then I try to recreate something similar, adding something new, so as not to copy it completely. Most often, after an idea appears, I usually make a small rough sketch in the form of a floor, walls, and pipes. I think about what character I'll add a camera, and figure out the approximate angle. Then I start refining things if needed, although that rarely happens. Usually these are very simple artworks. Then I apply textures, lighting, fog, using add-ons for speed and convenience. Most of the time, I'm very lazy about doing UV unwrapping and things like that. I add the character, and if I like everything, I set it to render, or I change the angle and lighting. After rendering, I do color correction in Photoshop and add more fog or dust if needed, and add grain or similar effects. On average, this takes 2 to 3 hours. If it's some kind of commission and I'm also being paid, then of course everything is more thorough and takes more time.
To speak from those I've spoken to, the general idea I have in mind, to draw something, it takes more time in comparison to 3D artwork. This comparison of mine, I only see it that way for comparing those who use assets that are already out there, as opposed to designing assets from scratch. I usually come across artists who make Blender or Source Filmmaker image renders with assets that are available to download or have been extracted from video games. But when I say extracted from video games, it's usually done by the person who is creating the render, because some models utilized cannot be found online. Question 7. Have you considered making fan art of a video game or anime?
Yes, sometimes such thoughts come up, but I think I've already developed some kind of personal style, and it's hard to fit a character from anime or games into it, except maybe only from Blame by Tsutomu Nihei, but maybe someday it will happen.
I have nothing to say about that, so let's talk about the next question. Question 8. Considering your expertise in Blender, is something like a Zen garden or mall interior seen as easy for you to design?
Creating a rock garden or shopping mall interior is quite a feasible task. It will all depend on the level of design and scale, but I think I could handle it.
I agree. It really depends on what you want to accomplish. Plus, speaking from not only what you can find online, but also in person, mall interiors really depend on the mall you go to. Now for you, Monk, whenever it came to talking about shopping malls, specifically their history, I see such subject to be of lost media, more or less. Again, depending on the mall we are talking about. For example, I did make videos talking about the water fountain I cannot locate anymore to this day. However, I did come across one film I think featured it, but it was tucked away in the background of a scene, and that's about it. Question 9. If you could travel to any world from your works, which one would it be?
I probably have one complete world in my works, and that's a kind of megastructure, but I wouldn't want to end up in a world like that. Only if there's some cozy floor with food and water. Of all worlds, I would choose something from Miyazaki's anime. It looks great.
Don't forget, such structures will take time to navigate as well, unless you had something like really fast elevators or those moving walkways seen at airports. Question 10. What are your top 5 tips for getting into 3D modeling?
1. Don't be afraid to start. The most important thing is to begin setting aside thoughts like, I won't be able to do it, I'll get hate, etc. If you're passionate about this and want to do it for yourself first and foremost. 2. More practice. Practice and don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's normal. 3. Don't try to adjust to the audience. That's a road to nowhere. Do what you enjoy. People are different and many will like your ideas, but you might not have a lot of followers, though I don't think that's the main thing in art. Learn to distinguish constructive criticism, even if harsh, from just a negative comment from a passing stranger. As I've said above, many people's levels of evaluation doesn't go beyond pretty or not pretty. 5. Believe in yourself and in what you do, even if it wasn't appreciated. Maybe it's just not the right time yet.
I cannot speak for tips 2 to 5 because that was covered earlier. But for the first tip, it's quite true. It's like learning how to drive a manual transmission. I do admit from my perspective, it can be seen as something people would say, it's easier said than done. I would tell myself you could research how to drive a manual transmission vehicle, but to research and picture such skill is only the beginning. Question 11. What do you think of these two sentences? A. I would compare Blender to a screwdriver because both are tools you can use to do anything. For Blender, it's image and animation, while a screwdriver is for installing and fixing anything. B. The one thing you can enjoy about modern artwork and video games. It's mega structures.
I wouldn't agree that Blender is a screwdriver. It's more like a toolbox that also gets updated, allowing you to create whatever you want. A toolbox that gives you the opportunity to share your imagination with the world around you. B. I wouldn't agree. Megastructures started appearing as a mass phenomenon not that long ago in my mind, and in general, they appear in indie games. In my opinion, it gives a huge variety of options for world building. I play a lot of games, and other locations can look just as good as megastructures. Megastructures are all about something dark and forgotten, but sometimes it's also nice to just run across a sunny field and slash slugs with a sword.
What you said in the first sentence is a good comparison. As for what you said about my second sentence, I remember a while ago seeing videos about those games. Yes, they are indie games, and the lore surrounding those worlds is shrouded in mystery for the most part. And to provide one game I remember seeing videos on, it's called Utility Room. It's a game that features a big world. It doesn't have a single mega structure, but it's a big world with big statues, which would still make one say, wow, this is a big place. Question 12. What do you think of mall architecture? Can you compare old versus new designs?
I'm generally not a fan of shopping malls, but if I were choosing, I'd pick old shopping malls thanks to the old architecture. They look head and shoulders above new ones. It's more pleasant to walk around in a beautiful place at the very least. In new shopping malls, you get more of an office feeling and it's suffocating.
I also side with old architecture when it came to shopping malls. As for the comparison you made to modern shopping malls, comparing them specifically to office settings, this is the first time I've seen someone make such a specific comparison. Question 13. What is one multiplayer video game you found difficult at first, but later you eventually became better at it?
Escape from Tarkov. At first I was getting destroyed there, but the last time I played, everything was much better.
For me, it's Helldivers 2. I started on the game's first year, which is 2024. I was too focused on playing on difficulty 4, and I was too stupid to try the higher difficulties, and sometime later I uninstalled the game on the 4th of May. It was a major 2 years of absence until this year I came back to the game in the same month. I saw how much the game has now with more types of enemies and content. As for any factors that contributed to me coming back to the game, it was the update that compressed the game, which helps a lot, eliminating that concern off my back about the game taking up too much space. Question 14. Did you watch any of my videos?
I watched videos about Mecha Break, good game, and I watched the interview with Org. Even though I didn't know about Azraelane, it was interesting to listen to.
Mecha Break is one of the games I used to play, and during the game's development, it was also one of the games that had a very open content creator program, which meant they accepted just about anyone, and I was a part of it. I particularly enjoyed the player versus environment game mode, which takes place on a map called Mashmak. As for the player versus player aspect, Yes, I've tried it. I've tried the competitive mode as well. I had some nice moments here and there with many matches lost, but that's about it. As for the interview episodes, that was basically the official launch of it. A while ago, I tried it, and the idea faded away until the present day. The challenges for doing projects with at least one person involved to compromise on time is rather the big first obstacle, because again, it involves somebody else with you, and it's always highly likely you are with someone who is at another time zone, so minus work or school, you have to make sure both parties aren't affected by this factor. And here's an interesting thing about the first two folks I've interviewed. The voice chat call was done within a decided day of the month. We never had to reschedule. Finally, there was the video editing process. It wasn't actually much. It really was adding in the voice call recording sequence into the video timeline, with most of it kept in because it felt more natural, so the whole thing would sound like a conversation as opposed to something that was 100% an interview with not much space for conversations. Question 15. What are your top 5 favorite artworks you have done? For the 5 you presented, my favorite is the 4th and 5th one. The 4th one is the good ladder showcasing a character and megastructure, and the 5th one scores well with showing off the main focus, which is a vast structure, or at least it appears to be a vast structure. I'm not sure about that because the shot does give the hint or illusion that the building is big. And to relate what I said earlier, not only does it remind me of some of the indie games I've seen, I would like to bring up the honorable mention that it does remind me of that one big factory from Titanfall 2. And finally, question 16. What's your favorite megastructure?
I really love the megastructure created by Tsutomu. Blade is my favorite manga, first and foremost from an architectural standpoint. It's more of an art book than a manga, really. And the idea that different levels have different life and different technologies is also very cool.
I don't have a favorite megastructure. As for the megastructure from Blame, yes, I've seen it and I've seen videos about it too. So that's the video and the interview questions asked to the artist. For this interview, I did attempt to not copy as much of the same questions that were reused for the second interview I've done, but the latter did make me factor in that there were some questions that made sense to ask again. For example, questions related to shopping malls, because I always enjoyed the perspectives people share about such structures. As for a question related to his works, something that I enjoyed, it was the question related to his work process. But nonetheless, the answers to my questions did give me a good insight on his perspective. This interview I've done, it's different from the first two, and the answers that I got, they were very different and longer than the answers given to me in the first two interviews. So right now, I am having a great time in Helldivers 2 and a little bit of CS2's casual game mode. What games are you currently playing? Good luck out there and have fun. Let's march ever onward to tomorrow and forward onto dawn. My name is Dragon Actual, and thanks for watching. See you next time.